Welcome to Proclaiming Justice, a podcast from PJTN that focuses the light of truth on vital issues in today's headlines that impact every American. I'm your host, Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder and president of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, and I'm here to educate, motivate, and activate you to action. I want to arm you with the truth and the facts you'll need to fight and preserve our constitutional republic and uphold the Judeo-Christian values our nation was founded upon.
But now, drumroll, Laurie Cardoza-Moore, come on up here. One of the things I just wanted to say, I really appreciate, I know Bill Voice and I have had a relationship with Laurie and Stan for a long time, at least 10, 15, 12 years. Something like that. And we just love her passion in what she is doing. She's been involved in a lot of politics, a lot with the school curriculum. How many of you know our school curriculum is a total disaster? How many of you, though, would want to do something about it? Oh, no, that's another question. But anyway, all of the United States that are watching right now, I want you to pay close attention, as well as everyone here in Washington State, to what she has to share. She is a strong advocate, and she's accomplished many things, and we just appreciate what she and Stan have been doing all of this time. And let's give a big hand to Laurie. Yay!
Thank you, Pastor Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, I so appreciate Pastor Mark and the ministry that he has. As I said, 12 years, it's probably longer, but he was one of the first pastors I met that were teaching about the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. And what I was seeing, what God was showing me in my quiet time as I was studying the Word, he was preaching and teaching. And that's how we became connected, because in Nashville, I couldn't find anybody teaching the Hebrew roots. In fact, there were pastors that would say, stay away from the Hebrew roots crowds. So, yes. So anyhow, there's so much going on, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, as Pastor Mark said, I'm a huge advocate for the state of Israel. And the only reason why I am is because I've read my Bible from beginning to end. And it's very clear, it's very clearly stated that we have a duty. We are duty bound to stand with our Jewish brethren. I was, earlier you had made a comment, it reminded me of what happened with Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. When they were getting ready Moses was preparing Joshua to go in, take the land. And you all remember, Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh wanted to stay on the eastern side of the Jordan. They didn't want to cross the Jordan to go and help conquer the land, take the territory. And look at what's happening today in our generation. They're trying to take the territory. And some people don't want to get engaged in this battle. And what did Moses say to them? He scolded them. Will you disappoint your brethren by not crossing this Jordan to help your brethren to obtain their territory? And he said to them, you can leave your flocks, because they wanted the green pastures. You can leave your wives, but all your men of fighting age will cross this Jordan, and you will help your brethren take their land. I get chills right now just thinking about it. You know, Washington, D.C., tomorrow, all these leaders are coming together. And we are coming, standing united, saying, no, you cannot take that land. And yes, Judah, our Jewish brethren, Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, we are going to stand with you. We're going to fight along your side. We're going to cross this Atlantic Ocean, or wherever you're coming from in the world, on the planet. We're going to cross over, and we're going to help you take your territory. We are not going to stand by. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's our senior and also senior academic advisor, Dr. Alfonsi, Sandra Alfonsi. She's in Jerusalem. Had a heartbreaking conversation this morning. Because I called her, I could tell in a text message she sent to me earlier that she was stressed, that what's happening in Israel is overwhelming to the citizens who live there. And I thank God for the people who are going over there. Pastor Mark's going to be going over there. I know many of you will be going over in September. This is so important that we go over to Israel, that we stand with our brethren, even in the midst of war. So we show them our dedication, that we are committed to stand with them. We are not going to let our government divide the land of Israel. The Bible is clear. It repeats over and over and over that we are to stand with our Jewish brethren. But one of the areas, as Pastor Mark brought up, is the area of education. If we're going to fight to help our brethren, we've got to prepare the next generation. How many of you are aware of the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian values that are being peddled to our children on a daily basis in this country and in many countries around the world? There are, I think we said South Africa was on. I know South Africa has been involved in researching the content in the textbooks and the curriculum. This is a book I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about in just a minute, that's up on the screen. But I want to talk to you about what's happening here, because this is why I'm here today. I read an article about the state legislature here in Washington State had introduced a bill, a good bill, on Holocaust education, making it a requirement for students K through 12 to learn about the Holocaust here in Washington State. This is very important. But a Democrat decided, and I'm not picking parties here, but she happened to be a Democrat, I'm just telling you, puts together an amendment and slaps it on this good Holocaust education bill, and her amendment is supporting Hamas. It is a pro-Hamas amendment. This is in your state, ladies and gentlemen. This is your government. I know many people don't spend a lot of time paying attention to what's happening in our state legislatures, but ladies and gentlemen, states' rights. We are a United States of 50 states that govern ourselves, and we need to tell the federal government and Bill Gates, yes, we're in his territory, and I am so glad to be here, because you know what? He keeps stepping into mine. So I am here to make you aware of this problem. How many of you are aware of what's going on with education in your state legislature? Okay, well, we need to increase those numbers, and that's why I'm here. Let's talk about this a minute. Let's pull up on the screen. There's an article about the state legislature and this bill. We can pull up on, there's an image, there we are. This is the headlines of Red State. Disgusting. Washington Democrat lawmakers introduce Hamas amendment to Holocaust education bill. This happened back in February. We have to form as a united front in order to stand with our brethren, because not all of us can go across the Atlantic or the Pacific and go stand in Israel. But this is how we can help Israel locally, by making sure our state legislature is representing our values. There's another image I want to show you, a school, Siri Elementary, Shoreline, Wisconsin. 7-year-olds, this is teaching 7-year-olds that Israel must be destroyed. 7-year-olds, elementary, first grade. And if they're teaching this to the elementary kids, to 7-year-olds, you can only imagine what they're teaching the kids in high school, 9 through 12. This, again, is happening in your state. And I'm coming to you, when I called Pastor Mark, I said, do you know about this? There can't be, I said, Pastor Mark, there's got to be people who don't agree with this in Washington State. I know it's a left-leaning state, but I cannot believe that there are people who agree with their government, because when I go to speak in different states across this country about this very issue in their states, more people agree with me than agree with their government. They don't support these values. And we've got to be able to have our voice heard, and that requires that we have to be engaged locally. This all started with the human geography textbook that was up on the screen. I want to tell you a little history. How did we get to this place? So back in 2012, a parent who is a member of our organization, Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. In fact, if you go to the website, pjtn.org, you can sign up to get on the mailing list so you'll stay informed as to what's going on across the country and also in your state. But a mother came to me, and we lived in Williamson County, Tennessee. It's the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. It's a red state. It's a state that is, there's a church on every street corner. And she said, you'll never believe what we're teaching our kids in Williamson County schools. She brings me the textbook you saw up on the screen. And I read through the textbook. 2 places, there was one anti-Semitic quote that legitimized Palestinians blowing themselves up in a Jerusalem restaurant because they were waging a war against Israeli government policies and army actions. The other one was talking about the so-called disputed territories. Well, I like to quote Menachem Begin. Menachem Begin said, these are not disputed territories, they are liberated territories. And that is exactly the truth, ladies and gentlemen. God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants forever. He gave them that land. We are repeatedly told in the Bible, you are not to remove the ancient boundary stones. And what are we doing? Our government is doing that. It's trying to do it right now. And even our state legislatures, as you saw with the 2 articles that we pulled up, just as an example. But the mother, I asked the mother, I said, can you leave this textbook with me? And I read that book from cover to cover. Not only was there anti-Semitic and anti-Israel content, there was anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian, anti the values you and I share, which the majority of Tennesseans share as well. And unfortunately, this was being taught in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. A school in a community where there are Christians involved or in the community that didn't even know this was going on. So we decided we were going to take the book on to try to remove it. And I want to share this story because it's important for you all to know. I'm sure how many of you get involved in politics on a daily basis? Very few. And that's, what? That's reflective of most of the country. But unfortunately, in this country and in that community, people not knowing what was being taught to their children, these kids were being indoctrinated with this propaganda in that textbook that was being used in that classroom. So we went through the proper protocol to try to remove the book. We asked the principal, we asked the teacher, we went to the school board, we went to the superintendent. And so the superintendent decided, okay, we're going to form a committee, we're going to review the textbook, and then we're going to let you know what our decision is based on the findings. Well, they went through the whole procedure, and they were going to vote one night at a school board meeting. This one mom, again, one person, all it took was one mom. We mobilized, we used our media background experience to mobilize the community. And we told the community, you got to show up at the school board meeting because they're going to vote, whether they're going to keep that textbook or they're going to get rid of it. Well, we had a standing room only crowd that night. School board meetings, if any of you have been to school board meetings, there's usually nobody sitting there watching government in action or our school board in action. And so this particular night, there were people coming in the door, one after another, to the point it was standing room only. You could see on the faces of the school board members, what the heck is going on? They had no idea what we were planning. We signed up because you do get public comment time. We signed up for our 2-3 minutes to speak. And when I got up and told them we wanted the textbook removed, I also reminded them that happened to be an election year. And I said, if you do not remove this textbook from our children's schools, you've heard what the other parents and tax-paying citizens have had to say. If you don't remove this textbook, we're going to remove every one of you from office. Now, I had never done anything like that before. But as Pastor Mark knows, I can kind of be a little bold at times. And they voted that night. They voted to keep the textbook. They went against the wishes of the majority of the parents and citizens. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you may not have kids in the school system. You may not have grandkids in the school system. You are a taxpayer. And so those textbooks sitting in your classrooms, in your community, you paid for. We, the people, have got to be more involved in what's happening in our local government, especially in our children's classrooms. Our kids are our future. We are told repeatedly in the scripture, train up your child in the way that they should go. Well, that also includes what they're being taught in our local schools. If we don't speak up and we don't protect these kids' minds, we're going to lose this republic. We are under judgment. We just had a solar eclipse. Let's just make it plain as day. But getting back to the organizing the citizens, that night when they voted, we had 4 months to be able to organize, find candidates to run for school board in order to flip that school board to do exactly what we told them we were going to do. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? 4 months. We flipped that school board. We'd never done it before, none of us, but we became activists in a major way in our community. And we said, not on our watch are you going to do this. And the fact that we were able to accomplish that, it scared the bejeebers out of the Republican state government. Because at that time, we were a red state. How in the world did these books get into our children's classrooms? Okay, so the local school district, but what the state, our Republican leaders knew, that as we kept digging, we were going to find out how these books even got into the classrooms. And it happened in the state legislature. It happened with the State Department of Education. It happened with the Education Committee, which I serve on now. Fortunately, I have the honor by our Speaker of the House in Tennessee to serve on the Textbook Commission and the Standards Review Commission because of all the work that we have done. I am not a teacher. I'm the president of a nonprofit pro-Israel organization, but I saw an area. In order to defend Israel, we have to start educating the next generation. So when we launched that campaign, we used media to do it. Fox News picked up the story of what happened in Tennessee. The state legislature was asking to hold hearings. They wanted to see the examples that we found in the textbook. This is how we were able to change the laws in the state. Now in the state of Tennessee, textbooks, instructional materials must be accurate. They must be unbiased, and they must reflect the values of our community. We are working on trying to get that legislation passed in other state legislatures as well, because we have to say what we're going to accept as we the people to use to educate our children. One of the biggest culprits, the book that you saw, the Pearson Human Geography textbook. How many of you are familiar with Pearson Publishers? They're also known as Savas. No, okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Pearson. Pearson is the largest textbook publishing company in the world. They're the largest publisher in the United States. They are buying up all the smaller textbook publishing companies, not changing the name of those companies, keeping the same name because they don't want us to figure out that they have a monopoly on our children's education. Guess who the 4 largest shareholders happen to be? Qatar. Who's Qatar? You know, Qatar's doing the negotiations right now in the Middle East. Who are the other shareholders? Turkey. Turkey's threatening Israel right now. How about Libya? They're kind of silent on Israel for the time being. So Qatar, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Libya. They're the 4 largest shareholders. Do you think they're getting a good return on their investment? Look at what's happening in the streets of our cities. How many of you have seen the kids that are K through 12 age marching in the streets, calling death to Israel, from the river to the sea? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is happening in our country. How did our kids get to this place? Because we have been filling their heads with this propaganda for at least 12 years. We know it's longer. We just haven't gotten the dates yet. But I will tell you, in the research that we did, we saw the transition of textbooks and the content in textbooks starting back as far as 1982. These are the people that are influencing. Who else is influencing our children's education? Bill Gates. Bill Gates came to Tennessee. We have an evangelical, Republican, Christian, conservative governor. And Bill Gates brought him a check of $34 million for education. And Bill Gates also told Tennesseans that he was going to be involved in education for the next 7 years. Not if we can help it. This is the problem, ladies and gentlemen. But as we started to push this message out through the media, Fox News picked up the story. They ran with it for 2 weeks. We started hearing from people all over the country, mostly from Florida. So we've been working in the state of Florida for 12 years as well, trying to help them flip their school boards and remove this curriculum and change the laws to make sure the textbooks are accurate, unbiased, and reflect the values of our community. So I went to go see then Congressman DeSantis. He was running for governor at the time, went to D.C., brought the textbooks. I brought 3 examples of what was being used in Florida, which were similar to what we were using in Tennessee. And I showed him the examples, and he said to me then, he said, I'm running for governor. If I get elected, I'm getting rid of Common Core, because Common Core is the delivery platform, and I'm getting rid of these textbooks. So he gets elected. And what's the first order of business? He has a press conference. And he announces at the press conference he's getting rid of Common Core and he's getting rid of the propaganda in the textbooks. Why did he say? Because someone came to me and showed me what was in the textbooks. It only takes one person to influence one leader who will actually do what he said he would do. Governor DeSantis also allowed his Department of Education, invited us to sit on their textbook review commission, and he called for an emergency review of civic standards. And we were invited to participate in drafting civics, social studies, and Holocaust standards for the state of Florida. And we were able, because of Governor DeSantis, his Department of Education, we were able to ensure that the textbooks that the children in the state of Florida, K through 12, every year, it was going to be required to teach civics, Holocaust studies. So it was required that they were going to have to teach these things to the kids. But also, we were able to incorporate into those standards the role that the Hebrew Bible played in the founding of our nation. The kids in Florida, K through 12, 1.8 million, will also every year learn not only about the role the Hebrew Bible played, but the role it played in our founding documents, the drafting of our founding documents, the role that it played in our form and structure of government. This is being taught in Florida. We took that same initiative. Tennessee had last year, was reviewing their civic standards. We brought the same content, information to the civics. I was able to serve on the standards committee in Tennessee as well. We were able to get them to adopt as well the role that the Judeo-Christian values had on our founding. We didn't get the Hebrew, but we got Judeo-Christian. So now we're working in states like Ohio, in Texas, in Arizona, and God willing, Washington State. So I've been talking to some of the members of your community. And this county, or I understand Buckley Pierce County, is a red county. And that's where we want to start. We need to start in a county that shares our values. A county that would be shocked and appalled if they saw the content that is being peddled to our children. They are using our children as propaganda guinea pigs. So I am working with several people in the community now in trying to reach specific leaders on the local school board, county commissioners, your sheriff. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you go, I saw a sign for a sheriff. I don't know, if he's a constitutional sheriff or not, but before Election Day, every one of you need to be on the phone with these candidates who are running. You need to ask them, are you going to defend my constitutional rights if I go meet at my school board and I tell them I want curriculum removed from my children's classroom, or I'm a taxpayer and I do not want my tax dollars to go to spend to pay for this garbage that you're feeding the kids in our local community. But I can't do it without your help. And that's why I need you all to help me. This is a tangible way, ladies and gentlemen, that we can help the next generation. So we can pass the baton not only of this republic, but our support to the Jewish people, our support for the state of Israel. We have to teach our children an accurate accounting of history, and it requires time and effort. I typically have a chapter in each state that I work with. I don't have one yet, but I'm going to be working on starting one and looking for people who are interested in volunteering to help us with this initiative. It is a tangible way to save our communities. We hear the term, all politics is local, but our focus is always on the federal government. And not that it shouldn't be, because it should. Our presidents, our congressmen, our senators, they should be reflecting our values back here at home. But many of them are not. And when they start seeing people in the community start rising up, when they start seeing people who are starting to question the leadership of some of those who are in positions of authority, it makes them start sweating. Because where did these people come from, and why are they so knowledgeable? And why are they challenging us on this? We have the governments that we have, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's federal, because we the people have allowed it. We are a nation of people who need to fight for our freedom. Do you know that the rest of the world is counting on us? We have a Bible study we do in South Africa. We have supporters in Australia. We have supporters in Poland and all across Croatia, all across the world. Just like what Pastor Mark, people know truth. And these people, even though they may be in another country, Western countries are being targeted by people like Bill Gates. We have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit back? And this goes to you all who are watching from around the world. You all have been hearing this. You've heard me. You've been following the speeches, the presentations that we've been doing. And if you're not, and you haven't, and this is your first time, we're not sitting here and you're not watching because it just happens to be that you turned on Pastor Mark Biltz today. You're watching because God and every one of you in this room chose for you to be here. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And the knowledge that we're passing to our children is not accurate. We should stop being afraid of teaching our children about our real history. We don't even teach, in most schools across this country, we don't even teach the Puritans anymore. Our kids don't know what the Mayflower Compact is. They don't even know what the Magna Carta was. They can't read the Constitution. We don't teach our kids how to write in longhand anymore. Why is that dangerous? can't read, if you can't write longhand, you can't read longhand. And if you can't read longhand, how can you read original source documents? How can you read documents to know that your freedoms and your rights are not being taken from you? You can't. And neither can our children. So with the textbooks being all digital, not all of them, but a lot of them are digital. But a lot of school districts are starting to go back to the good old hardcover textbook because people are complaining. They don't want their children on the internet. They don't want digital. They don't want, in fact, how many of you heard about the 3 school board members in San Francisco that were recalled? This was a couple years ago. I heard about these parents who joined together. They were all Democrats, well, with the exception of one couple was not Republican. These Democrats recalled 3 Democrats on the school board. Why? I flew out there to San Francisco to meet with these people because this was a shocker to me. Because typically the people that I work with are conservatives and happen to be Republicans. I'm not, supporting any candidates here. I know we're a nonprofit, but I'm just telling you, this is the facts. Well, I went to meet with them and I asked them, why? Why did you recall these candidates? And they said to me, these were Asian families, Democrats, high-tech families. They work in the high-tech industry in San Francisco. And they said that we were tired during COVID of watching these 3 try to change the names of our schools from George Washington to George Floyd. And not only that, this is coming again from Democrats who share the values we share. But not only that, they were tired of their kids being immersed in technology. They want the computers out of the classroom. They want their kids reading books. Again, these are Asian, Democrat, high-tech families. So there is a commonality here, ladies and gentlemen. People care about their children. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a libertarian. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. We all care about our children. There was one group that I spoke to. It was a garden club in Boca Raton. And pretty much the majority of the people were Democrats in the community. It's Palm Beach County. The couple that invited me were not. They were Republicans. But I shared with them, I went through a whole PowerPoint presentation to show them examples of the anti-Semitic content in the textbooks. At the end of my presentation, one woman raised her hand. This was when President Trump was still president. And she said, "What is Betsy DeVos doing about these books?" And I said, "Well, that's a good question. Because I can't seem to get to Betsy DeVos because the holdovers from previous administrations will not let me have access. We have published white papers, and we use these white papers to distribute to school board members, to state legislators, to government officials in Washington, D.C., to the President of the United States, so they can see just how serious this problem is. And everybody's wondering, why are our kids marching in the streets? Again, supporting terrorists, supporting Hamas. But all the evidence is right there if we can just get it to him. And I explained to her, I can't get this to him. But she was, again, a Democrat. She was a grandmother. She cares about what her children are being taught. So I share this as I'm going to wrap up our time together. I share this with all of you because this is happening on our watch. God didn't put you on this planet to live in this community just because of happenstance. It's just a coincidence. We know there's no coincidence with God. We have to decide whether you're here in this community, whether you're in a community in another country around the globe. We, the people, we're commanded by God to pursue justice. Justice justice thou must pursue. That's not, do I feel like it today? And I know that many of you have very busy lives, and you're probably thinking, how can I even get started? I just want to hear from you. You can, again, for those of you who are watching, you can go to pjtn.org. Just send me a note. I want to know more. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll bring in everybody who, decides that they want to talk about this and see what feasibly people can do in their community. I just want to remind you all, it only took one mom who found an anti-Semitic quote in her child's textbook. We were able to impact Pearson Publishers. Pearson was forced to pull that quote out of their textbook if they wanted to have the business of the state of Tennessee. We can do that in Washington State. And just think about the reverberations it will send across the country when Washington State citizens organize, mobilize, and say we're taking back control of our children's education. Again, it doesn't matter if you have a child in the school system or a grandchild in the school system or a great-grandchild in the school system. You pay the taxes. Our hands are guilty. We've allowed this to come in. So we go before the Lord, say, Lord, hineni, here am I. Send me. I don't know how. I didn't know how to do this. I didn't go to school to learn all this. I saw a need, and I had a platform. And I have my incredibly wonderful husband, where is he? Who's so talented, who does all our media. Thank you, honey. Who does all our media so we can reach the masses. I hope that you will share the information and share this video with your family and friends, and that you talk about what you can do. Start forming a community group. It's not difficult to do, ladies and gentlemen. It just takes people who are willing to get involved, stand shoulder to shoulder to defend our Jewish brethren. Because remember, this all comes back to, are we going to stand with Israel? Well, the most important part is the propaganda war. Because we even have Christians, evangelical Christians, even people like Tucker Carlson, who are spewing lies and disinformation by Christ at the checkpoint, which is a fraud. I've written about it many times. Those pastors are not legit. They may have gone to, some of them may have actually gone to seminary, but they're not preaching the word of God. What shepherd or what flock are those shepherds shepherding? It sure isn't the flock of Israel. And that includes us. Because if you are in Christ, Paul said, you are Abraham's seed. You are an heir according to the same promise God made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, God bless you all. Pastor Mark, what an honor to be here. I told him I'm coming out to rile up the troops, because I can't, again, as I close, and I read those articles here in the state, I said, Lord, there can't be people that don't care about this. There's got to be people who are willing to rise up, and the only congregation I knew to call was Pastor Mark. So anyhow, I just want to thank you again for the honor to be here. God bless you all. Thank you. And again, if, after Shabbat, send me an email, pjtn.org, and I would love to talk with you and see how we can't organize to mobilize your community and send those reverberations across the nation. God bless you, and thank you. So I just want to remind you, proclaiming justice to the nations. The mission is to educate Christians, to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel against the rise of global anti-Semitism. And I can't do it without you guys. You can go to pjtn.org. Thank you again for joining me on this edition of Proclaiming Justice. Please share this podcast with your family and friends. For more information about how you can get involved, please visit our website at pjtn.org. As a PJTN Watchman, you can help us keep up the fight to preserve our freedom for our children and their children for such a time as this.